Welcome back to another episode of the Cameras and Coffee podcast. I'm sitting here with Scott Wyden Kivowitz, and we're going to talk all about AI. So I'm excited about this. This is something I'm not very familiar with, but we're bringing on the expert, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that. So welcome, Scott. I'm so
Thanks,
excited you're
thanks.
here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about the conversation.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit? So if nobody's heard of you
Mhm.
before, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, what your background is in the whole AI thing,
Sure.
and how it relates to photography, I guess, for you personally,
hmm
from there.
Sure. Yeah. I've been a photographer for over 20 years at this point. And I actually went to college originally for music, and then when I decided that photography was my future, I switched to photography technology as a major. So I actually got a degree in photography technology, and have basically spent my entire professional career on the um, sort of like B2C side of the equation, where I would always be educating photographers and interacting with photographers about things that can help their business. So my own photography has always been like a part-time on the side type of thing, and
Yeah.
I've always had a full-time job in the industry. Um, so yeah, I actually there's not enough time to go into the entire background, but everything that has happened since college basically has led me to my current job at Imagen. And AI has played a role in it for the past, I would say, 5+ years. I've been using AI in a variety of different forms, between photography itself or content creation. The whole chat GPT thing has really been around for quite some time, even before it became popular. So I've been using AI in a variety of formats for a long time, and so yeah, it was a good fit when I joined the Imagine team, and now I get to enjoy the photography and technology side on a daily basis.
Yeah. And you run the podcast for Imagine, correct? And that's
Correct.
called
Yeah.
Workflows.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
hmm
Um, Something I find extremely interesting on my end is when you mentioned in your intro the color blindness.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
tell us a little bit about that because I don't know. I just because color for me, like it's an ongoing frustration in my editing. And
hmm
so to kind
Yeah.
of tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, color blindness is something that runs in all the males of my family. Not all of us have it, but I do. My father did, and my grandfather did, um, and my brothers do not. So
Hmm.
skip them. Um, but yeah. I see color, but my color blindness is a type that if I see two similar colors that are next to each other, I
Yeah.
cannot tell the difference at all. So I struggle with getting accurate color. In college, I was utilizing my professor. He would actually help me in the dark room
Mm,
to ensure that my colors were where they needed to be.
yeah.
Once When I was in college is actually when when digital the transition started.
Yeah.
So
Same.
yeah, so even when we started going to Lightroom and Photoshop to edit,
Mhm.
at that point, um, I was still getting assistance, whether it was my professor in Photoshop or Lightroom came out after college. So when it was Lightroom side, I was using a combination of my wife and also a color checker passport in order to ensure
Mm,
that I got accurate
yeah.
colors and monitor calibration, the whole
Yes.
technology basically
Yeah.
to help get me there. And now with Imagine, I don't even have to worry about it at
Yeah.
all,
Well,
which is
that's what
great.
I was gonna say is because I've spent so I can't even describe how many times I've sat
Yeah,
there like, does this color like match the rest of
yeah,
this or whatever? And now that I'm using AI, I'm like, I am saving so much time with
yeah,
Imagine. It's like,
yeah.
oh my goodness. So shameless plug for Imagine there. But we want to cover some things that you kind of have experience in. And
Mhm,
so we're going to kind of cover five main things today as we chat. And I want to kind of hear your perspective on them. So, like the first one we're going to kind of go over is generative AI.
mhm.
So, that and then content for Chat GPT, Bard, that kind of stuff. Kind of tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about that.
Yeah, so, generative AI, there's 2 types of generative AI when people usually think about it. One is generating images, which is like a Midjourney, a DALL-E, or, things like that, and the other is text-based, which is the most popular is ChatGPT. Google had one that was called Bard, and they about last week, they renamed it to Gemini, so now it's got a new
Hmm.
name. I think Gemini is a much nicer name than Bard. Um,
That is true. It rolls
but
off the tongue a little nicer.
yeah, yeah. But they both basically do the same thing. Google has some advantages, which I'll get to in a little bit, but, um, the premise is that you're having this conversation with a chatbot,
Mhm.
and it's as if a human is texting you back, but it's just AI texting you back.
Yeah.
And the end goal is basically for it to give you either an answer to your question or for it to write something for you. So you could use it and say, I need you to help me create the content for my about page.
Mm.
Ask me whatever questions that you need to write that for me. And then it'll actually have that conversation with you and ask you questions to ramp up your about page. My friend Christine, she's at Imagen. She just spoke one of the classes at Imaging USA 2024, just in case anybody's listening to this in the future. Um, and she wanted to revamp her speaker bio for Imaging to,
Yeah.
promote her class. And so she said, "Here is my existing about page, all the text from my existing about page from 6 years ago, whatever it was. I don't know. Ask me whatever questions you need to update it for 2024." And
Mm.
literally, and her class was about AI, and her speaker bio was 100% written by ChatGPT, with her just doing some any grammar changes that needed to
Yeah.
happen for her own voice. But that is like the what ChatGPT and generative AI text is really good at is having that conversation, and that's the key is
Mhm.
conversation to get whatever your end goal is. If you just say
Yeah.
write this, it's not going to get it where
Yeah.
you want it to be. I mentioned Google Gemini
Yeah.
has an advantage, and the big advantage is that it's actually starting to roll out connected to the Google Workspace. So
Mm.
Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google
Yeah.
Slides, all of it. It's all connected to this AI, so you can have it create a doc for you, create slides for you, or soon you'll be able to say in Google Sheets, figure this out, and it'll examine all the cells and figure out the data, whatever
Yeah.
you need. Like so much potential of where it's going.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of funny that my first introduction to all of that was my son getting caught at school for writing a
Oh,
book report.
yeah. Yeah. My wife is a special ed teacher, and her students,
Okay.
are starting to use it, and, there's tools that can identify it, of course.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it is unfortunate that students are starting to use it for that purpose.
Yeah.
At the same time, it is the future, so I'm, like, split. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's good that they're using it because they need to know how to use it for the future,
Yeah.
but at the same time, they shouldn't be using it the way they're using it.
I guess it's an adaptive way of, like, learning how to appropriately use it as time goes on
Yes.
instead of just, like I don't know, like, infringing on text and things like that and making it your own. Like, they
Yeah.
gotta learn those things, I guess, so
Yeah.
it's kind of a good thing in that. But
Yep, yep.
so at what point do you think it's appropriate, like, let's say someone's writing, like, a blog post or something like that, in order to use that
Mhm,
AI or Chat GPT? Like,
mhm.
what do you feel is, like, the appropriate time to implement? Is it, like, in the beginning, kind of in the end? What are your thoughts?
It depends on what the person's needs are. So I like to use it personally out of the gate, right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you need to know what the end result is that you want to
Mhm.
happen. But I like to use it right from the beginning. And then from there, I will then tweak it to make it my own voice. But that way, like, if you're having a mental block or something, it is a great way to get past it. If you're not a great writer, it's a great way to get things started. If you're um, creative visually with photos, but not creative visually with words, then there's no harm in doing it. And all you have to do is just tweak the end result to make sure that it is your own voice. And like a very common thing with ChatGPT is the word dive or delve. Like it's quite obvious when you see those words that it's a ChatGPT thing,
Yes.
which to be honest, sometimes I just leave it in depending on whatever the writing is, but other times it's like, you can come up with a different word. Use a thesaurus and you
Yeah.
come up with something else. I actually use a combination of ChatGPT or Gemini, depending on the situation. And then when I'm going through, and because I also have dyslexia, which I also talk about in the intro to workflows, um, is I use Grammarly as a way to
Mm,
ensure that I'm fixing anything that
yeah.
doesn't read well, basically.
Mhm. I know that's kind of some of my struggles too, and I definitely love using it to get my thoughts out,
Hmm.
because I will definitely, like, have all these scrambled thoughts, and I'm like, "What is the
Hmm.
point, Kara, that you're trying to make here?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, "Okay, throw it all in there and say, like, organize this for me,"
Yeah.
And so, like, that's where I'm like, "Okay, this is exactly what the point I'm trying to get across."
Yeah.
I just was struggling to, like, the outline of it and all of that, so
Yeah.
that's when it's
Would
super helpful.
So there's another app which, we were gonna talk about a little bit later that would actually help with the whole brain dump
Yeah.
type of thing, if you want me to talk about that as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's an app called Cast Magic.
Mm,
It was originally designed for taking a podcast episode, transcribing it, and spitting out as much text-based content that you want to help promote your episode. It's since then has expanded to just like any video content, any audio content, and they're even beta testing an iPhone app right now where I can hit record just like a voice note
yeah.
um, on the regular Apple voice note. I'm sure Android has something similar, but I can do it in the Cast Magic app, and I can just talk, say whatever it is that I wanna talk about, and then when I hit stop, within seconds on the Cast Magic website, in your account would be the transcription as well as, "Here's a blog article written based on everything you just said,"
Mm,
and
yeah.
or, "Here are the most important things that you talked about. Here's your takeaways. Here's your action items." What Cast Magic is basically taking the transcription from anything, and you've got these prompts. It's using ChatGPT, but you've got these prompts that they call them magic prompts. They're basically prompts for a series. So let's say we were talking, you created a cameras and coffee space in Cast Magic, and then you have one for your voice notes, right? For the from the app, from the iOS app. Um, each will have its own magic prompt, a
Mm.
bunch of them. So I could say I could have 100. I probably do have about 100 prompts in my workflows space. But then I can have 50 of them in a different space, and you can have a bunch of spaces and infinite amount of prompts. But the beauty is that you've got these. You don't have to like tell it to do it every time. You're just
Mhm.
sending it the audio. It's transcribing it. It's giving you the content quickly and efficiently. And then again, you would take it and make it your own. So
Yeah.
I find that very useful. It could be really useful for client meetings as well. Like if
Yeah.
you're having a face to face, you're in a coffee shop, or whatever. Put the phone down, hit record, and then you don't have to take notes because it's
Yeah.
going to do it for you.
I never thought about that because, like, I know there's apps for, like, college students and things to, like, um, record their professors, and it, like,
Yeah.
creates, like, an outline and test questions and stuff like that, but I never would have thought about using it in a client meeting because 'cause I'm always, like, typing little notes, and I'm always
Yeah.
like, "Sorry, I'm just keeping notes so I don't forget what we're talking about," but I'm like,
Hmm.
that awkwardness doesn't have to be there when it
Yeah.
can be recorded, and then
Yeah.
I know a lot
Exactly.
of times I take, like, our meeting notes, and, like, those are what a lot of my blog posts are on because 'cause I'm just
Hmm.
having those conversations with them,
Yeah.
in our initial meeting, asking wedding clients, like, "How did you meet?" and that kinda
Yeah.
stuff. So, yeah, that would be really helpful.
So are your client meetings in person or virtual?
So, I tend to do them more virtual unless they
Okay.
really wanna do them in person, but I
Yeah.
find a lot of times it's more convenient for them that way too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like there were way more in-person meetings before the pandemic, and now
Hmm.
it's just standard to do
To do virtual. Yeah.
virtual. It makes
So
it easier.
so for virtual meetings, whether it's an IPS meeting, whether it's a pre-sales, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
there's another tool called Fathom
Mm.
that is like having a little virtual assistant that comes into the call with you, whether it's a Google Meet, I think it's Microsoft Teams and Zoom.
Okay.
There might be others, and it's literally like an AI bot VA that comes in,
Yeah.
um, and it records the call for you and also creates, like, takeaway notes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a note taker for your meeting. So, like, in that case, like, you wouldn't need Cast Magic and Fathom to both be recording, but you could take the recording from Fathom and throw into Cast Magic to see what it does. So, like, there's
Yeah.
no
It's
but
an
anyway, so I actually use Fathom when I have Google Meet, internal calls,
mm,
um, for in Imagen because, like, that way I'm not focused on, like, taking notes, I'm letting it
yeah.
take notes. So, um,
Yeah.
it's another useful tool.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like that I mean, I love having that personal conversation. I feel like I get derailed sometimes when I'm like
Mhm.
taking notes too. And then I'm like,
Yeah,
what was my thought
yeah.
process? So, like, even in that, it'll just record it for you and come back to it later, which is so helpful. um, so, some of the other things we want to talk about video editing, which
Mhm,
for our videographers, maybe is this kind of something that is on the way for them. Tell me a little bit about like the whole Descript thing. I've used it a little bit,
mhm.
but not fully. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so Descript also started for podcasting, right?
Okay.
It's funny, a lot of the tools
That's
that I
where I get
use
a lot of that stuff for is like for the podcast. Like use Descript.
Yeah, yeah, but
Mhm.
it has also expanded to a full-on video editor, and it is now not as popular as Final Cut Pro might be, or Premiere, or even DaVinci Resolve, but it is the podcast, editing software, and I use it, yes, to edit, the, Workflows podcast, but, I actually use it to edit, pretty much any Imagined video that I touch is being edited by Descript. Um, and then bringing it relating it to photographers, it might be that let's say you're a photographer that you do have a local podcast, right?
Mhm.
I know that like real estate photographers, there's a lot of real estate photographers that have podcasts to attract their realtor clients.
Mm.
Um, or there might be you're trying to create content for TikTok. Well, you can record a whole bunch of video content right in Descript or record on your camera and bring it into Descript, and then you can tell its AI to find the best clips, or
Yeah.
you can create these little clips and make them vertical, add on the caption, and dynamically have it change who's speaking and all this cool stuff
Yeah.
that the AI does. Um, It'll also correct bad audio automatically if you want. It'll, do automatic ducking, so that means if, like, you have music playing and then somebody's speaking, the music will drop.
Wow.
It even has eye contact fix, which I think it's funny. So, like
What?
yeah, so I know there's gonna be a lot of people listening to this, but if you're watching any part of this,
You're watching the
I'm
YouTube
looking off
video.
the camera, right? So I'm looking to my right, and then you turn on eye detect, it's like, boom, now you're looking straight. It's
Oh, that's
it's a
so
little
crazy.
eerie at times,
Yeah.
but
Huh.
it's also like, if you have somebody who's just always looking the wrong way,
Yeah.
it's a nice way to, like, digitally fix that, in, like, a worst case scenario if you need to. So, I strongly recommend for any photographer trying to do some video work that is not comfortable with video editing,
Yeah.
Descript, you edit the video like you edit a Word document or a Google document. It's all text-based editing,
Hmm.
if you want. There is a timeline, you can edit like a regular video editor, but its bread and butter is the text-based. It was the first app to create it, and now Premiere is doing it, and now, DaVinci Resolve is doing it. I'm sure Final Cut Pro will have it in 2024 at some point. So it's a lot of companies, a lot of other apps are starting to take what they do and try to replicate
Yeah.
it. Um, but
All
I
trying
find
to
that
stay
it's
at the same speed as each other, right?
yeah, yeah. One thing that's beautiful about Descript as well is that it is both cloud-based and local. So
Mm.
when you go to make a project,
Yeah.
it takes up space on your internal drive. But when you are done, you just hit remove download and it puts it back in the cloud and now you've got your space
Oh,
back.
crazy. Yeah.
So, yeah, when you're editing it locally, and then you're like, "Oh, I don't need to back this up to a NAS or anything. It's just
Yeah.
done. It does it for you."
Wow.
So,
So would you need that original then in order so like you know how like when in photography
mhm,
you're like using your catalogs and coming back. Is that the
mhm.
case for video where you would have to have your original to come back to like
No,
export or no?
not with
Okay,
Descript. Yeah,
that's
so
amazing.
with Descript, if you go to export it, if you go to edit it, it re-downloads everything locally again.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a really nice system the way that they've designed that.
yeah. I anything to make our jobs faster, right?
Yep,
Like get
yep,
things out. It's
yeah,
I mean, a lot of times photographers or even just people in general
mhm,
get frustrated at like the whole microwave method of things. But I'm like, what are
yeah,
you doing to like join in?
yeah,
Like it's happening. It's time to
yeah,
face the facts. Like think people want things fast. So
yeah.
and
So,
it only helps
it's
you out.
it's funny, so part of my job at Imagen is community manager, right? So I manage our community, which is a Facebook group,
Yeah.
and 2022, like the end of 2022, one of our co-founders, we have 3 co-founders, they challenged me to like try to do something in the community that stands out that nobody else does.
Yeah.
And I always had something in the back of my mind, and I was like, I am tired of having to type replies over and over and over again.
I was gonna bring this up today because I've noticed this in the community. And
So
I love it. I'm like, wow. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so I made it a thing starting with, I don't know, the end of 2022. I made it a thing that I was replying with video
Mhm.
100%. Every first reply, sometimes I reply to additional replies in text, but
Yeah.
um, unless I'm sick, unless I'm just like mentally drained, I
Yeah.
am replying with a video. And sometimes people ask me, "How are you doing it?" And it's no secret. The answer is Descript. I can make a video reply to somebody's question or post in Descript with a caption, completely transcribed with a caption,
Wow.
and export it faster than I can actually type the answer. So that's what I do.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah,
I
it
love
wouldn't be
it though
possible without.
because even with AI, it's
Mhm.
humanizing it more, you
Yeah.
know? Because like when I was thinking about that, I'm like, people will type things in those types of groups all the time and they don't think
Mhm.
about or care about the person behind that. But I feel like
Yeah.
when you show up with a video, like, it just reminds people there's a human behind there, and I
Yes.
love it, and I love how you just respond in those. Yeah, that was something I really wanted to bring up today because that was something I noticed stood out where I was like, "Wow, he's, like, coming on here all the time and just doing a video response." I don't know if I could personally do that. I'd be like, "Is my hair okay today?" Like, "I'm not wearing
I got
makeup,"
agreed with
like
that. Yeah. Yeah, the hair thing I don't have to worry about so much, which is a blessing and a curse.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I just love that. I just think that's
Mhm.
so great. But okay, so let's kind of talk about noteworthy. So you talked about Caddis Magic.
Yeah.
And so like kind of tell us what's a little different with noteworthy from all of those.
Yeah, yeah. So there's some AI use cases where I feel like there's companies doing some pretty unique things, using AI um, in their applications, in their software that is not what you would expect out of the gate, right? And there's a couple. There's one more I'm going to add to this list that
Okay.
I didn't originally share with you. But the first is HoneyBook, right?
Mhm.
HoneyBook, a lot of people are familiar with. It's a CRM platform. Um, and what they have done is instead of just saying, okay, you can use AI to write your emails, which you can do, right? But what they've done is they've built the AI into their lead analysis.
Mm,
So it learns from all of your historic interaction with with your clients to see like, okay, this person came in from Facebook. They're 30 30s, in their 30s, they're female. Based on all this different data, how long in the conversation might it take for this person to convert to a wedding client?
wow.
And it's not only like how long might it take, but what's the chances that it's going to convert? Is it 50%? Is it 40%? So they started adding these like AI analysis into their lead system to help determine how much effort you should put into that, you know,
Wow.
basically.
So it's
So
tracking that individual or it's I'm
yeah,
con
it's apparently, so I don't use HoneyBook, so I haven't used it firsthand, but just from conversations I've had,
yeah.
it is like per new lead that comes in, it's doing this
Okay.
analysis, but
Huh.
it's based on your historic data,
Yeah.
basically.
Wow.
So yeah, some interesting stuff there. Focal is a newish website company. Um, and they're fantastic people over there. They're based out of Canada, and Focal started incorporating AI into their blog creation, in their like page text creation using ChatGPT. But what I really like that they did, again, unusual use case that you wouldn't expect out of the gate, is let's say you want to start with Focal and you already have a website. It's based on Showit or Squarespace, whatever it might be. You want to switch to Focal. You put in your website. Focal will examine using AI. Will examine your website, take images, take the text, and basically design you a new website based on what you have, all using AI. And it happens fast too. And then you can go in and make any changes you need to, of course. But that's another really cool one. So like if you are looking to switch platforms, and you're interested in Focal, that's an option for you.
Hmm.
Um, but then on the WordPress side, there's a theme plugin company called Cadence that is probably one of the best WordPress based themes. I spent 10 years in the WordPress space, so that's like I was living and breathing WordPress for many years.
Like
Um,
looking at the matrix for me in WordPress. I use it for blogging, but when it comes to like the whole website space of it,
mhm.
I'm always like, this is a whole nother language.
Yeah, yeah, it can be overwhelming, and it's, yeah, they've made a lot of changes lately that you'd think might be easier, but even to the technical people, it's like, why are they doing these changes? That's confusing. Um, so Cadence has made WordPress easy for people.
Mm,
And again, Cadence is a plugin, like a page builder type plugin, as well as a theme, which is the design of your site. And they also have a tool that basically says, um, you tell it what you're looking for in a website, and its AI creates the design for you. So instead of it saying, like, "Here's my current website, I'm switching to Cadence," like what Focal is doing, they're saying, "Tell me what you want, and I'm gonna design it for you, all using AI." Um,
that's
so
great.
they're taking a different approach. I like the Focal approach better, but it's nice that a WordPress-based company is also doing something
Yeah.
similar. Um, the last thing, that was actually just a recent announcement, so we're recording this the end of February, um, is PickTime announced like
Mm,
AI for people search and stuff like that inside of their galleries. So
oh,
now we're gonna start seeing gallery providers, print sale providers, things like that, also incorporating AI. And so they have it for their blogs, for their websites, their blogs,
yeah.
where you can have ChatGPT do a blog article with you. Um, but in my opinion, the cooler part and the more unique part is the people search and all these other type of AIs that they're adding on that front, because that's more unique to them rather than what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
when you say
yeah.
people search, is it like a specific person you're looking through a gallery?
So you as the photographer can go and it'll show, just like Lightroom, you can do faces, or Apple Photos, you can do
Yeah.
faces, or Google Photos, you can do faces. So PickTime's now gonna recognize faces. You can identify the face as the bride or the mom of the bride or whatever it might
Wow.
be, and then your client can go and say, "Oh, I just wanna see me
Yeah.
and the mom and the bride," right? So, it's like it's allowing you to do stuff like that.
I think about that as far as like people who photograph races, like marathons,
Mhm.
and how helpful that will be because
Oh,
like, my husband
yeah.
runs a lot of marathons and he's like, a lot of times they would like categorize them by bib
Yeah,
number, but it's like, what am I in any of these other ones?
yeah,
So like that
yeah,
would be insane.
yeah, yeah. Or, like, there's a photographer, a Nikon ambassador, Tamara Lackey.
Mm,
Her husband, Steve, actually organizes marathons all over the world. His company is like the comp or the I don't know if it's his or a company he works for, but, like, they create the marathons,
yeah.
and, like, this is something that he could buy like an enterprise license to, right?
Yeah.
And utilize that for each of the marathons, and then
Wow.
so much potential, so much
Yeah,
potential.
I love it.
So, yeah.
So, shameless plug, if you are
Yeah.
interested in AI in Imagine, listeners, you can get 1,500 free credits by using my link in the show notes. But, you work for Imagine, and
Mhm.
so kind of tell those who are not familiar with Imagine, tell them a little bit about what it does. I feel like everyone knows, but I don't think people realize how easy it is. Because
Mm.
I was literally sitting down with a friend of mine and she's like, "I'm starting to use Imagine." And I was like, "What do you mean starting?" Like
Just
it
do it.
just goes. Like I don't know. So
Yeah.
I like jumped on a call with her and I'm like, "What's the hang up?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"So does it do this?" I'm like, "It's walking you through it. Like, do you not?" So I think there's just a lot of skepticism, like
Yeah.
not understanding like what it like how it works. So kind of walk
Mhm.
us through how it's used, how it works, all the kinds of things.
Yeah. So, Imagine, for those who don't know, is AI based post production software. So, Imagine does three things, and three things very well. First is our bread and butter, is which we started um, 4 years ago. Is AI editing, where it learns how you would edit in Lightroom Classic, and then will build what's called an AI profile for you, and um, that AI profile basically will edit like you way faster than a human could. We can edit right now at the time of recording this 10,000 photos. I'm sorry, 1,000 photos in less than 10 minutes. So it's like
Yeah.
0.033 a second. It's super fast. Um, and the other thing that Imagine offers is culling. So we do AI culling as well as automated backups. We have the first and only photographer specific backup
Mm,
solution. And the way that, and the reason why I say that is, one, it's ingrained, embedded into your culling and your editing workflow. So we will back up what you cull or what you edit. But additionally, if you edit with Imagen, we're also backing up your edits that we learned from you, how you
yeah.
edit. We're backing that up alongside your backup, so that it's true disaster scenario. If you have to recover your original high resolution raw files, then then you're getting that with your edits as well.
So
So,
same question I had for video, because
mhm,
that's one that I was wondering, like, because to export from
mhm.
Lightroom, a lot of times you need those originals. How does that work with Imagine then if they're saving those for you? Do you
Yeah.
still need those original files? Like, how does that
So
work?
with yeah, so with Imagen, first of all, if you're just culling or editing, all the data, all the edits that we've done, or all the selections that we've done,
Yeah.
we put the metadata back into Lightroom for you. So you still have all of your originals the way that you would normally keep them organized, keep them that backed up. All we're doing is updating your Lightroom for you, so that all that information is now up to date with what we've done.
Yeah.
Um, if you're backing up with Imagen, we still recommend having your own backup, right?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
shouldn't
yeah.
only have one and it only being cloud. You should still have your own.
Yes.
Um,
1,000 different
eh,
ways. No.
yes, yeah. There's a yeah. So um, and so if you did have a NAS crash or a RAID drive crash or whatever it might be, and you had to recover from Imagen, what's going to happen? Again, if it's a high resolution with the edit, we will download a folder of all the raw files with XMP sidecar files.
Mm,
And then you could just take that and bring it back into a new Lightroom catalog if you need to. Um, but I can tell you that by the time this episode airs, we will have a new feature out that we are actually going to be supporting folders, not just Lightroom Classic catalogs.
mm.
So anybody will be able to edit with Imagen from any folder, whether it's a folder that you're doing with Adobe Bridge, with Adobe Camera Raw, Photoshop with Adobe Camera Raw, or Lightroom CC locally. Either way, we'll be able to support that.
I know there was a question on Facebook. Someone was asking about editing
Mm.
from an iPad. And
Yeah.
we were like, How would that be? Because I feel
Yeah.
like that's something that I see in the community a lot, is a lot of people
Mhm.
are using Creative Cloud on
Yeah.
iPads,
Yes.
and I never really thought about that, and I think it's just because 'cause I'm an older generation that's always put things on a computer. I've
Mhm.
never, like, airdropped or whatever from my
Right.
camera to my device.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
always like, "How does that work?" So is that, like, you're working to do Creative Cloud then too, or is that already an option?
So that's not an option right now. That is something that we are exploring to actually do the Lightroom
Mm,
CC from the cloud. So Lightroom CC was updated in October 2023.
okay.
Um, version 7 of Lightroom CC has cloud and local. Now there's two options.
Mm,
And so we are going to be supporting the local side with the hope of eventually supporting the cloud side. It's a much bigger project, but it's anything is possible, of course.
and I actually take that back a little bit because I do use it for my phone photos. I don't do
So
it for my professional
yeah.
camera photos.
So
So I don't think about that all the time. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I have
yeah.
the Lightroom app on my phone, and I use that for my phone photos," but
There's 3 types of photographers in the world. There's the Lightroom CC people who are fully mobile.
yeah.
There's the, Lightroom Classic people who don't wanna go mobile, and then there's the people who you typically start in Lightroom Classic and then sync to Lightroom Mobile, which is what I do. So,
Mm,
what I do is, and this I do this with my family sessions, I do this with proposal sessions. I bring into Lightroom Classic, but I sync the collection that I'm currently working on to Lightroom Mobile. And here's the reason why. Um, first, it's going into Lightroom, sending it off to Imagen. Imagen's calling it. Imagen's editing it. Then it's going back to Lightroom and it's syncing to the Lightroom cloud ecosystem. Because then I can pull it up on an iPad. I can pull it up on my phone. But more importantly, is I can put it on my Apple TV, and in practically real
oh,
time,
yeah,
my clients are sitting on my comfy couch watching their photos fully edited on an Apple TV
that's
in minutes.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the only problem I have with that is I need my TV calibrated.
That is the
Because
downside is
that's
the
one where I'm
TVs.
like, "It is so bright, I can't get it
Yeah.
any darker. Why is everything blown out?" But that's crazy though.
Yeah.
Oh, the technology we're moving into, that's
Yep.
just insane.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
oh, well, Scott, this is all really great information. Things that I didn't even know were a thing. So that is awesome. I'm kind of learning. The one thing I do have a question about, because
Mhm.
I am skeptical, I don't use it, but tell me how Imagine culling works and like
Okay.
the science behind that, because I don't know. I'm always like, how does it know which ones to choose? Obviously, it's learning from
Mhm.
us, but kind of tell us a little bit about how that works.
So at the time of right now,
Yes.
of recording this, it is not a personalized culling. Okay. We are moving in that direction, of course, and everything that we know and have learned over the past 4 years about editing and personalizing it, we're going to be incorporating all that personalization control into culling as well. But the way that it works is um, quite simple. Actually, we didn't want to take anything away from the photographer. All we want to do is aid in identifying what we call the keepers. So what we're doing is when you call with Imagen, we're virtually grouping the photos by similarity. So we're looking at the metadata of like how the seconds of difference between it was the
Yeah.
capture, as well as the aesthetics, the visual aspect of like how different do they actually look, even if they are a split second apart. And you can control between three different modes how strict you want the similarities to be. And then you can define ha anything you want to be considered a standalone photo, so there's no other photo like it.
Mm,
Anything that is a duplicate, so there could be 4 photos or 5 photos that are basically the same,
yeah.
in the group, and then the one that you wanna identify from that group as the keeper. So the way I do it is 5 stars are keepers, 4 stars are standalones, 3 stars are duplicates.
Mm,
Okay, so we're not saying blur, we're not saying, you know, bad photo. All we're saying is this one standalone is a 4 star. It has 0 duplicates. There's nothing else like it. These are all the ones that are similar to the others, and then this one 5 star is of all those duplicates. This is the best one.
mm.
And this is where we do look at and say, okay, are the eyes open? Are the eyes closed? Things like that.
That was my next question, like,
Yep.
does it know if the eyes are open?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does. It does. One thing we're working on to enhance is kiss detection. So,
Hmm,
making sure that if the first kiss is there, um,
yeah.
like that's already being tested. It works beautifully. It's just rolling out to everybody. So at the end of the day, if you're in full trust of the AI to cull your photos, which um, it's funny, people are pickier with the culling than they are the editing, but the editing is the more time-consuming part
Yeah,
for more
right.
people, so it's like a this funny balance in the scale. Um, so if you're in full trust of the AI, you'd only be looking at keepers and standalones. You wouldn't look at duplicates
Mm,
at the end of the day. Now you can say, "I wanna use colors versus stars versus flags." Um, if you're a Lightroom CC person, there are no colors. You'd have to
yeah,
use only stars or flags. Lightroom Classic, you can choose whatever. If you're going to go into Photo Mechanic, you could. I think they have flags. You can use whatever.
yeah, they do.
So
They're
yeah.
harder to I think colors are easier than the stars for me
Oh
in
yeah,
Photo
yeah. See,
Mechanic, yes.
if you're a colorblind person, typically you avoid colors.
Yes.
So
Oh my
um, yeah. So that's like our culling is very simple in the way that we look at and rate your photos.
mm,
So like when you see comments saying in the Magic community, if you see a comment like the one from this morning saying, how are happy are people with the culling? I found that I had to redo it manually because of blah blah. It's because they weren't looking at it with here's how Imagine culls. They're looking at
yes.
it like
Oh,
I've tried all these solutions and Imagine's may not be as good. No, they're different. Ours is
mhm,
not designed like anybody else's.
yeah.
We did it the way that we think that, it should be done, but at the same time, we did it in a way that eventually we can personalize it to you. So,
So let's say I'm because I'm sure people have lots of questions about the culling.
yeah.
Um, so am I adding like a whole catalog like I am for the editing for the culling, I'm assuming? So it's like everything in a Lightroom catalog? How
Yeah,
does it
so,
work?
right now it's Lightroom Catalog, soon it will be for folders, as
Yes.
well, so you wouldn't have to have the catalog, you'd be able to start from a folder. But yeah, that's right now it is a full catalog. And actually at the time of recording this, we don't even give you a visual look at the cull in the Imagine app. Right now, it is we do the cull, we send all the data to Lightroom, and then you can go in Lightroom to look at the stars or the colors or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, in about a week's span, um,
Just
our new
moving so
culling
fast.
studio, yeah, our new culling studio will be out and we'll have in-app culling.
Okay.
So that you can actually
So,
see the visualize and make your changes inside of Imagine ahead of time.
because I was gonna ask, so like, are the originals there? So if you're like, oh, I want to see if another one was better than this one,
Yeah.
can you like open up and see like all of them that it like shrunk down to the one?
Yeah, yeah. So in the new culling what we're calling Culling Studio, you'll be able
Yeah.
to see the groupings and swap,
Yeah.
which one is the keeper, or say, "I want both of these as keepers," or whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
I
Yeah.
think that's something I definitely need to move into because I am an overshooter. I have a friend I associate shot for her, and she
Mm.
was like, "Girl, I had like 9,000 photos to go through." I go, "But y'all had." I'm like, "It's not like I missed a moment, you know."
The day's covered, you're good.
I was like, "Should I
Yeah.
start culling these before I send them to you?" Like, it's really funny, but I mean, that's what takes the longest when you're trying to get like a sneak peek out or something. You're like, I got to cull these before I can like drop them in or whatnot. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's something that's super exciting. Love that you're gonna have folders soon, and when this
Yeah.
airs, will probably be out since you guys are moving so fast. But was there anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap up? I just wanted to give you a chance. If there was like,
I guess this is the last thing is like when you're editing with Imagine, just know that, um, the base edit is like the global edit for the photos. It does learn from you,
mm,
but we do have some additional AI tools that are available that are not personalized at the moment. But like we can crop for you, we can straighten for you, we can mask your
oh
subject, which
my
you can
goodness,
dial in those settings a little bit
yeah,
and also smooth the skin of your clients' faces as well. Again, where you can control the settings. So there's
yeah,
you know, a lot of things that are available, and there's going to be more, over time.
yes,
We're not stopping there. We're very responsive to what the community asks for.
Yeah.
So, and,
That balance
you
tool is huge for me. I don't know what it is. I think it's because I shoot with Canon and those RF lenses are so heavy that
mm.
like by the end of a wedding day, I'm like every horizon line is like crooked
Yeah,
because my arm
yeah,
is just killing me. But I love that it has that option because it saves
yeah,
me so much time when
yeah,
I'm not
straining is my
having to fix
favorite.
it. Yes. Oh, it's
Yeah,
probably the most useful tool for me.
no matter how steady you think your hand is and,
Yeah.
like, or how straight you think that you are holding the camera, you're still crooked.
Uh-huh.
It is
I've
what it
even
is.
used, like, on the back of my camera where it has, like, the horizon line that you can, like,
Yeah.
check or whatever. I'm like, "You know what? I don't have time for that."
Yep. Nope, nope,
I'm
nope.
like, "I'm not even gonna pay attention to that. It's just one more thing that"
Yeah.
I mean, if I really wanted to get it in camera, if I moved at a slower pace, maybe, but I'm
Right.
fast-paced all the time, so
Mhm.
it doesn't work that way for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Scott, where can we find you on the web, and Imagine and all the things?
Yeah. Yeah, so, my social handle is the same everywhere, it's just Scott Wyden. So you can find me there, you can find me at scottwyden.com. But then Imagine, yeah, you can find Imagine pretty much everywhere. If you go to imagineai.com, that's where you can find all of our socials and stuff. But definitely listen to our podcast as well,
Yes,
Workflows Photography Podcast.
I love it.
So
Yeah. That was one where I was like, "Oh, that's Scott." So, I love it. Thank you for being on today, friends. If you wanna follow the podcast more, you can find us at carahainesphotography.com/podcast, or you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at the Cameras and Coffee Podcast. Don't forget to leave a review if you loved listening to this and wanna hear more episodes like this. Um, but yeah, Scott, thank you for coming on. Friends, I hope to see you next time, and until then, cheers.